I say, how y'all doing today? How are you doing? I am your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, the best film writer and director at St. Louis Facts, award-winning published author, activist, journalist, actor, business owner, Lacey G. Soldier Turner. And today I got a wonderful guest with me. You know, she's a former dancer, model, published author. She's metaphysician, entertainment personality, photojournalist, an abstract expressionist painter, along with much, much more. She just done so much. We got the great, wonderful, talented Osiris Munir. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, everyone out there. I was just giving my kudos to Brother G Soldier here, aka Lacey Turner. And it's just nice to see some people on the mic, some relatable folks, you know, and so that's always nice. So LA is always an interesting place to be early morning. It's like traffic and sun kind of just peeping out above the mountains. So it's really cool right here now.
Okay, so we're about to get this crack and let my audience get to learn a little bit about you. So I saw that you spent a few years in the Navy, and after that, you was the junior president for the Northern California NAACP. Could you explain what that was like and how did you go about being in that?
Wow, let's see. So when I got out of the Navy, my parents at the time lived in Santa Rosa, California. My whole family, they had moved to California because my dad's brother lived in Santa Rosa. So that's how I ended up in Northern California. So when I came out of the Navy, which I got an honorable discharge, I immediately, you know, located into Santa Rosa where my family was. Where else was I gonna go? You know what I mean? So when I got there, I really hadn't kind of like experienced home life. I went into the Navy literally right out of high school. I had to wait to turn 17 because I was too young to go. And then my parents had to sign up on me to go. So as soon as I got into Santa Rosa, I found out there was a college there, Sonoma State College. I started going to school. Next thing I knew, I was handling, you know, part of the Black, what they used to call the Black Students Union, BSU, Black Students Union, you know, all of that kind of thing. Most of the people that we knew were from back east. So everybody thought I was back east because everybody that I hung out with, they were all from back east. So I got that whole flavor of being from back east, you know, but I'm actually a Texas girl. So met a lot of people. Dr. Maya Angelou's son, Guy, went to school with us. Intozaki Shanghai, they would come to Sonoma State and do like residencies, which at that time I was so young, I didn't really know what a residency was. You know what I mean? I'm like, what do you know? So I didn't even think about it in that way. I was just focused on being a student. And then what happened is that I ended up going to school there because I had my daughter at the time. And so I had a kid, but I would go to school and then my friends, because I was really young, they would watch my baby while I go out there and dance on the dance floor at the BRE, you know, the BSU student dances and all that, you know. And so that's kind of how I got into the junior NAACP, just being spotted in the mix, you know, and hanging out. And then when I did the junior NAACP, it was a really, what felt long was a short run in what they call politics run. And I didn't fit in. I don't have the greed in my heart. I don't have all the things that's needed. I'm much more of an artist. And
yes, me too.
I find my residents much more of an artist, and it's too corporate for me. I'm quirky. I'm kind of, you know, I don't fit the average, whatever the average is supposed to be. So, you know, I didn't fit in. And so I got out of it. And the next thing I knew, I was in entertainment.
Okay. So, yeah, so I saw that. So I saw that you penned the letter to the 7-time Grammy winning producer, a vocalist, arranger, Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire.
I did. Now let me tell you how I met Maurice.
Okay, I'm gonna say, so, no, that's the iconic group too.
Let me tell you, I got history. Everybody knows me. So I started chanting. I became a Buddhist.
Okay.
And Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, much like the story of Tina Turner, for those of you who don't know anything else about Buddhism other than what you've seen in a movie. So
let's look at it.
I started chanting, and they said, At the time I was in school, my daughter had to be 4 or 5, then whatever her age was. And I was married and not doing well, not doing well.
Okay.
And one of my friends was dating this guy. She was from Claudia, and Claudia was from back east, and Columbia University graduate. And she was dating this guy in Northern California because that's where we all were. That's why I met all of them. They were here at the time. Now most of them are back east. But she was dating this guy, and he told her about chanting. She said, my boyfriend chants. And I'm like, what is that? And she said, well, you can be a vegetarian. I'm like, you can be a vegetarian. I mean, it was like some really hot, and the weird thing is that I had never been a big eater. And so in the community, I was considered, they would make fun of me. I was called olive oil, everything, just make fun. And so my dad told me, well, that's okay, babe, because when everybody else is getting fat, you're going to be just getting fine. And I didn't know what he meant by that. I went through most of my life like shadowed because I didn't fit into the size what the community is supposed to fit. Never could be a cheerleader, anything like that. So I started chanting to be able to get out of Northern California, get out of my marriage. And Maurice they were doing Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club with the Beatles. Okay. And I was looking at this show one day, and they were coming down these stairs. If you've seen the video, they were like, I took you along for a ride. Yes. And so I said, that's who I'm supposed to be married to, that guy right there. And I really, how you hear music, but you never really focus on who maybe necessarily people that are performing. Correct, you just know the song, whatever, you don't really think about them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and he's in metaphysics and blah, 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 blah. So they told me I could chant for anything I wanted. And I said, well, I'll do it as long as it goes to, will it go to Luther Vandross? Because they said, yeah, it's like part of the rhythm of life. I'm like, well, we go to Luther Vandross? And so they were like, yeah. And so I hummed it to Luther Vandross. I said, okay, I'm in. And it sounded like some cool shit to do. I'm like, that's some cool shit to do. Ain't nobody else doing it. They're all about peace and love. I'm about that. So right in synchronicity with becoming a Buddhist, some kind of way, I wrote a letter to Maurice's office here in LA, which was the complex at the time. And it's out in West LA here. Big old studio was him, a couple of the guys that worked in there, but basically it was Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I wrote a letter, and his sister Jerry answered the letter. I'm like, get the hell on.
I know you were shocked.
He called me on the phone.
Wow.
And he said, and I never forget how I felt, because he was into metaphysics. So it felt like this big being was ahead of him. Like you could feel his presence in the background. And I felt like you could feel him like right there, although his physical body was like, that's how it felt to me. I never forget the feeling this day. And he said, hi, this is Maurice White. And I'm like, and I was talking to my girlfriend, Claudia. I'm like, girl, he's on the take off. We're like, oh, yeah. And he invited me to his studio. One of my friends took me over there, dropped me off, and we became friends. We were both into metaphysics. I thought, this is a brother that's in the metaphysics. This guy has evolved out of the Christian community and on a whole nother wavelength. And I had nothing but mad respect for him. And because I had been studying those things much alone and much self-taught, because I just thought it offered me another way out. And from the community that I grew up in, I didn't see any shining examples of what they were talking about. So I was looking for a way out. Okay. And he gave me that when he called me and invited me to the studio, and we became friends. And then we lost contact with each other. Check this story out. And at the time I met him the first time, I wasn't really in the entertainment industry, but because, and it's a whole bunch of stuff I could go into about all the people I met. Like I would be like in somewhere obscure, and it'd be somebody like Wayne Vaughn, who I didn't even know these people were. And they would be like, oh, hey. And I'm like, oh yeah, who are you? I'm Wayne Vaughn. I'm a writer with Earth, Wind, and Fire. You are reading. And then it was like all these kind of psychic things would happen. And these kind of, what do you call it? I don't call it psychic. It's just a normal part of life when you're connecting with things and people and you're out there. But anyway, so the next thing I knew, I was at the William Morris Talent Agency. And one of my friends got me in the door because she was working at this small little thing called Spotlight Enterprises. So I actually got into comedy before I became into the other side. So all of those guys, Jamie Foxx and all those, I met him when Marcus King brought him into our office. So I know them from way back. Him, Chris Rock, all of them. So anyway, she heard about an opening. And so I ended up with William Morris, and one of the artists that they were working with, what they call baby artists, somebody that's got potential, they're in development, they give them, they support them because they feel like, oh yeah, that's a good talent. Hugh Maurice, he was working on a song for her, Ingrid. And she said, oh yeah, I said, well, oh yeah, that sounds nice. Who's doing your song? She said, Maurice White of Earth, Wind, and Fire. I said, tell him Osiris is at William Morris. He called me immediately. Hey, how you get up there? How you get up there? I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's, but you know how it is. And then we just became friends and stayed friends until he passed away.
Nice, man. That's a great story, though. How did you get into?
How it happened? No lie. Can't make this shit up.
Hey, I believe it. So much stuff has happened to me crazy. I believe it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So how did you get into modeling and dancing?
Now, because I had children, I had a daughter. When I got to LA, I was already in my mid-20s. And I started going to John Robert Powers and the Otis Parsons School. And I became a fit model. And at that time, there were not a Black women who were fit models. Most people were not my size. So it was nice to be able to have somebody gratify my ego because of my little size. And so they took me on, and then from there I started being noticed by designers and people that would come to the school for design stores. The next thing I know, I was modeling for Marika Nack. Anybody that's designed Marika Nack is a girl from Switzerland. Marlene Stewart had me modeling for her in her clothing shop in Beverly Hills. I still have the photo because I'm the only Black girl in the window in a photo in a clothing store in Beverly Hills, California. In there like this model. And so I did that for a while. And then I ended up in Europe doing something for Marie St. Clair in Florence, Italy. And I stayed in Europe for about almost a year. And then came back home because the kids didn't want to come. They didn't want to come home. They didn't want to stay there. And now they're all everywhere. They all are in Europe. They're all all over there. Yeah, they're nice. And that's something. Yes. So that's how I became a model. And then the next thing I knew, designers from Europe and those people saw me and they started using me in different things. And then from there, I just kind of started blossoming. I was just very easy to deal with, very easygoing, no muss, no fuss, but still very young and didn't really understand what was going on. Since it's not like I grew up with parents in that time that talked a lot. So a lot was not said. So, but I was like a boy, what they considered to be boy traits. I was like, yeah, I want to go out. I'm going to do this. That. Well, my mother, she attributed that to, that's what boys do, not girls. So I was already into that, alpha girl thing even before, because I grew up with brothers. And so I'd be like, but I want to play with trucks and all that stuff. I want to do this and I want to do that. And I did other girl things too, but my mother wouldn't let me. So my father was actually the one that supported me when I wanted to leave and go into the Navy. He supported me, and that's how I got away and ended up doing all these things.
Okay, what about dancing?
How did I get into dancing? Let's see, I was modeling, and they have in Leimert Park here, I was dating this guy that was some big tycoon. I didn't know who he was. They were like, oh, he likes you. I'm like, okay, So anyway, I used to dance out in the public in Leimert Park at the big African, back in the day, they had these African festivals and a lot of stuff they don't do anymore. But back in that time in the early 80s here in LA, they had these outside big African festivals. And I would dance in public with the drums. And because I always loved to dance, because my mother and my aunt were like considered to be very famous dancers in their time. So they were like these community dancers. So my mother taught us how to dance. So my brother and I wouldn't dance. My mother would literally take us and do the foxtrot and all that and throw us into the wall, like to make us dance. And she like swing us like that. And then you'd hit the wall unless you would swing around. And me and my brother got tired of getting hit in that wall. One day we came out there like, we were next thing we know, we were entertaining people for the family. And that's what all I was allowed to do, because I couldn't go nowhere. After all, I was just a girl, but we were entertaining. And so I remembered all those things because I always loved to dance. And I would start dancing in public. So one day, this sister was out there, she said, girl, you're a dancer. I said, I've always wanted to dance, but I have kids. And what she said, then ain't got nothing to do with it. We got an African studio there. So it was Rwanda Lewis, who's a famous Katharine Graham instructor from New York days. And she would teach us to dance, ballet, jazz, mod, and they tap the floor like this with a cane or something to make your timing be right. And they would hit you in the back. And they did that to me in modeling school too, to make you stand up straight, because I was tall and I had no confidence and I would walk bent over, because I was like ashamed for being tall and, basically slender, for my, again, the community standards. And so they made me walk straight. And she started tapping me in the back, and then she taught me how to I didn't even know what ballet was. Yeah. She taught me how to do ballet. They taught me how to do jazz. The next thing you know, I was just dancing. And then I got into Lula Washington. Jimmy Locust did all of Janet Jackson's touring at the time. And I went in there and they were like, wow, and you got kids? I'm like, yeah. It was like, you got fire. I had never seen anybody that small with that much fire. So if you go back and look at the movie Coming to America, the first one, okay. Jimmy is the little teeny guy that runs up in the front and he's got the feathers and they go all that. That's Jimmy Lopez. That's who I learned. Go back and look at it. Oh, he's got fire. I'm like, he's that little and he's got that kind of fire. I want to learn from him. And then basically what they taught me to do was to open up and just let out my fire and don't be afraid of my exuberance or my energy, my artistic, energy. Don't be afraid of that. And I had really been beaten down as a kid by my mom. That's what my book talks about. How my mom had not really, for whatever reason, I didn't hold it against her, but it really blocked that energy that you feel now. I didn't always have that. So I had to develop that. And then here I am, boom.
So I saw that you had worked as a talent media rep for the Universal Circus. So
my God.
How was that? I do my research. I do my research now.
That's right, you did.
How was that?
After my run at William Morris and modeling, I had mouths to feed. You got to have something steady. And so one of my friends, John Cartwright, who had been with the show a long time as a tour manager, I needed work, and I had actually gone from William Morris to a job working for Jurassic Park project. So one of the raptors' legs in the project for Jurassic Park, it has my name on it. So you can't make this stuff up. I was the only the only person of color, the only female on a team of guys that went from like 4 people to like 35, 40 people production. And they loved me, but it wasn't where my heart was. So I ended up at Universal Music and Records, MCA, those record labels. They loved me. I fit right in. I did that for like 3 or 4 years, and then came in one day, they laid me off. And I had never been laid off. I had no idea that they do this. I'm still like shocked. Like, oh my gosh. So I promised myself that I would never put myself in that position, that somebody else had control of my time and that they affected my money and my time like that. And so after that happened, I went crying to went from business relation to a good long-term friend, Terrence Shattuck, who is a songwriter. He wrote Physical, co-wrote it with for Olivia Newton-John. He's also written some things on Doja Cat. So I ran into Shattuck, and I call him Shattuck because I thought Terrence was like, I'm like, Shattuck is cooler than me too, so I'm gonna call you Shattuck. So I called him Shattuck because I thought it was cool. So anyway, I ran into him, and so he said, well, you've got to get a job, because he's from England. It's, oh, you got to get a job, proper job, you've got to take care of yourself. And so I'm like, okay. So John told me about Universal. So he said, you're going to be gone for about a year. You're going to be on the road. I'm like, hey, my kids are old, I don't have nothing, I got to get some money, blah, blah, blah. I'll be able to, and it paid really well, like, a really good amount per week. I became the talent media rep because I'd already been primed by William Morris, by handling celebrities. Part of what I had to do was every city you had to go on radio live, you and Shucky-Ducky Quack Quack. Shucky-Ducky was a ringmaster then. And so that was the whole thing, like Shucky-Ducky Quack Quack, so I would have to go on a live radio all over the country with Shucky-Ducky, and we just go from station to station, which is how I know all the radio guys, how I met all of those people. And so they made me the manager because I knew how to talk to people. I was already in media, and it just shifted. So I had to do a double job of being a talent rep and then the media rep, because the media would get there at 4 in the morning. I had to wake the talent up, get the Tigers in the ring, get a mirror up, the people that did that trained the Tigers and would work with them on set, in the ring, get all of them up to meet the news by like 5 in the morning, so it could air at like 7 in the morning. So when people talk about news and all those things, those are some of the things we really would have to do back in those, when in early media, not technology-driven media like it is now, where it was a people-driven media. So that's how I got into being a rep. And they didn't want to let me go. My kids were like, Mom, you look like a crackhead. You have got to get off the road. And then I had to find something to do, and Shattuck helped me form my company, Onk Entertainment, which produces my show, 15 Minutes to Show.
That's what I was about to go right into my next question. So how did 15 Minutes to Show start?
15 Minutes to Show started, like I said, by me trying to find something to do. I'm like, okay, I got a little bit of personality. I've been a model. I look good in clothes, blah, blah, blah. I will get on camera. And I actually started out in the street with my friend who walked out in the street with me with a camera and said, okay, Miss O, let me get my stance. And I literally started going out in the streets from door to door to galleries here in Culver City to get content for my channel on YouTube. And then I went from there to actually interviewing people like Mario Van Peebles. I started getting invited out to USC here, which is where all your famous artists come from. A lot of people don't know that all of your Leonardo DiCaprio, all these people that you see famous, John Singleton and from the community and all those people, they started in LA at Los Angeles City College. A lot of them went to USC. They pump out stars. A lot of them started in the schools here and went on to become a mainstay in Hollywood. So, that's pretty much how I started Onk Entertainment. And then I named my show 15 Minutes to Show because I've always been interested in doing other things. And I didn't know how I was going to wrap. I'm like, I don't want to be on air for an hour. I only want to talk to people for a few minutes because I want to do something else after that. I'll be I want to do something else. I don't want to just be on, like that. So that's how I started 15 Minutes. And I had heard of 15 Minutes and everybody's like, oh, 15 minutes. And it was a clicky kind of, 15 minutes, 15 minutes.
15 minutes of fame. Yeah.
That's right. So I'm like, okay, let me just roll with that. And it worked out fine. It's worked out. I've been on air like about 8 years now.
Okay. So what got you into being a photojournalist and abstract expressionist painter?
From doing 15 Minutes to Show. From 15 Minutes to Show, I was fortunate enough to get hired by the Culver City newspaper here. And then that gave me room to go out and to film with my little camera. So I'll give you guys a funny story. One day I was working for this magazine. I think it was a Hollywood magazine, whatever it was. And they, and understand that I'm a woman of color going into these situations that no people of color were going into at the time. So I want my credos out there, my audience. I want you to give me my credits and my tops and breast to my shoulders, because I was doing this when nobody else was doing it. People would stick to the community. They were afraid to go outside of the community. I would go into the community, but also go outside of the community too. Like, look, I'm interested in doing other things. So they embraced me. Nobody gave me any problems. Every once in a while, I would run into situations where I didn't even know what was going on because I was so busy living inside of myself and being brilliant and beautiful and all of black and whatever else, that I really didn't pay attention to any kind of racism or anything like that. It never crossed my mind, And I'm like, wow, I just figured I didn't have enough experience or I should work harder. That's how I looked at it, because that's how I had been trained, So I started going out for Cover City News, and I thought, you know what? I'll go one step further and give them something on video. Let me just film it. And even though I'm not a film person or whatever, let me just film. And so what had happened was I went to a photography store here, and one of the guys in the store said, are you a photographer? And I said, no, but I've messed around with a camera for years. I used to have a neighbor named Bob Boudreaux, who was the first Black guy on the cover. He did a cover of Life magazine. Life magazine, because he married a Chilean woman. It was a big deal back then. And I told him the story. I said, and that's how I got to use a camera, but I don't really know anything about photography other than that. And he said, well, I don't know what you know. And I work with a lot of photographers, but if I were you, I would invest in a good camera because you've got one of the best eyes I've ever seen. And photography is basically 95% eye. And he said, I'm telling you, he said, and then he gave me a camera to start with. This guy, his name was Mario, I can't remember Mario. He gave me a camera and said, I'm gonna be going to this thing, won't you come and roll with me? And I'm like, okay. And then I just started going around the guys, and the next thing I knew, I was a member of PPAGLA, which is hard to get into, because you have to have this experience and that experience, but they just got me in. And I think it's because they really knew that I was genuinely interested, and I had a sort of professionalism about me. Like, I'm polished, I've been, with some of the highest celebrities, and I know how to act, and I know what to say on camera, and I'm not just gonna act like I've never been anywhere else beside my mother's home, and that kind of thing. Yes. And they knew, and so everybody felt that. And with the Universal Circus, they used that same thing. You had to be yourself, with all of that flavor of who you are, whatever that is, from internal to external. And then you also had to show your professionalism. Like, this is what professionals do. There's nothing to do with your gender and your race or whatever. This is what pro people do, period. And so I had been trained to do all those things, and I brought it. Okay. And that's how I became a photojournalist for Cover City newspaper. And then I worked for them for about 3 years. And during that stay, I was able to interview Roger Wendell Smith. I was able to meet Michelle Obama, who, gracious, I don't know, she may not know me personally, but I was one of those photojournalists that she made a point that they brought up to the front. They had us in the background. I had to fight to go to film her and meet her in person. That's great. And so they had us way in the back on this platform at the Hilton here in Century City, where they were at the time. I believe it was a Hilton. And when she came on, I never forget. You think Barack was the president? No. No, honey girl is the president. She came in and said like this with her arms. I never forget it. Shut up. Everybody couldn't hear a word. And so she whispered to someone, and she made them bring all of the people of color and the journalist up to the front so we could be right in front of her. And because she did that, I have a photo of her on my blog where she's standing in the middle of all these men and they're taking her picture. And it looked like a Marilyn Monroe thing to me. I'm like, wow, that's a nice shot. And I took it of her. And so she was here because I'm a vet. And I fit all the bills. I'm a vet, woman of color, you know, I got all of it going, you know. So anyway, she was here with Eric Garcetti for a campaign to help the homeless vets and the vets understand how to get benefits and how to make their lives a little bit more easier. So thanks to her, I was able to really shine in that occasion. The other person I was able to meet who was a lifelong dream was my baby, Angela Davis, Dr. Angela Davis,
yes.
Who I found that was she's one of the third most brilliant, I think, either women or people in the world, And I got to meet her and take so many photos of her. And one reason that I left the Culver City newspaper was that they didn't want to pay me. And then the other thing is that one of the editors there took my story and put her name on it.
Wow.
And so, you know, yeah, and I'm just telling people that you go through these things. And what I did was I just quit. I'm like, okay, no pay, and you're going to take my stuff and not give me credit. That's okay, I'm gone. But I'm still online. You can still go find a lot of the things I've done, you know. And from there, I just started interviewing other people outside of my own community. I was able to get into the Asian community very easily because I'm a Buddhist. And one of my friends from Oakland who got far more street stuff in her than me, you know, she Chinese, you know, she got stuff in me that I didn't even have, you know, because I'm like, I think she'd be laughing about it this day. She's gonna beat me up because I didn't have an Oakland Raiders outfit on. And I thought that was such an interesting thing to come from a sister that was Chinese. I'm like, I love you. Yeah. And we became friends, and we've been friends ever since, like all these years. And then we worked together at the record label, and they're all, you know, we were all worked together. And so that's how we all became friends. And then from there, I started doing 15 minutes. I started a blog because after I left Culver City, and my blog is called Stones in the Color of Rare, I wanted to go out and talk to people that the entertainment industry would ignore. And I thought they were badass, like, he's bad. You know, like
yeah, I did
like
that a lot too.
Like our only Black magician in the whole world.
That's
you know, and then I would interview things that they wouldn't find of interest. And now they're doing things that I was doing years ago. Go back and look at my channel.
So you a trendsetter.
You know, so I've been a trendsetter before trendsetting knew what trendsetting was, you know.
And that's like me, that's like me. I done met some great celebrities. I done met Christopher Clay Martin, and now I done met Osiris Munera.
That's right. You know, and the thing is that I would be out with celebrities and not really know who they were. You know, like, because I wasn't there to meet them, I was there to do my job, you know. So if you happen to be whoever these people are, like I went to, I went to Corgi and Beth, and I met Angel, and then I was working with a Nigerian artist, Doye. And because she was Nigerian, we were able to get into this big event for, like, you know, I mean, the creme de la creme of the community here, who all live in Windsor Hills or Ladera Heights, and some out here, but, you know, most in that area. They all were there, and I took picture after picture after picture after picture, and lost a bunch of photos on a computer because I didn't know how to retrieve them. But I still have some of the photos. And so some of the things I have photos of, I mean, like, I got called to do some play, and they couldn't, not me doing the play, but the cover for news. And it was Marla Gibbs, and they couldn't, they had called Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek, and she was not feeling well at the time. And they were like, well, do you know, who knows Marla? I'm like, I know Marla, I got photos of Marla, I got photos of all these people, blah, blah. And so I called them and they were able to get her to do it, whatever they
Right.
wanted her to do.
Right.
So, and I was always like a satellite here. So my contacts, like my friend with your girl Sassy B Productions Worldwide, I was able to stay in contact with people overseas, artists that were coming to William Morris and need me. They were like, I love you. And they would stay in contact with me with their managers and everything from even in other countries. So that's pretty much how I became international, because people would come here and meet me and then just want to like stay. Like, I love you. I love your energy. I have a photo signed by Aaliyah, the artist, saying,
Yeah.
Miss O, I wish everybody had the same energy that you have. Because I always had all this energy and, and always like, really engaged and really involved. And like it meant something. It wasn't just a job for me. It was like, this, I'm living, breathing this stuff. You know what I mean? So that's how, that's how all that happened.
Okay. And I know you touched on this a little bit, where let's talk about your book. Is it called Nita?
Nita.
How did that come about?
Nita came about with a woman I knew brought a publisher into my home. And the publisher said, I heard you have this amazing story about how you went from being born in Texas to the Navy and to the entertainment industry and all these things that happened to you. I think you should tell your story. It's very interesting, especially for a woman of color. I don't know anybody that's done all these kind of things, and they're unique things, like living in Europe and having kids, and then doing all these things despite the fact that you had kids and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. And so she had a small publishing company that unfortunately everyone out there, that's why you can't find Nita unless somebody out there wants to help me republish, which I'm looking for now. They went out of business in COVID because they were small. And so a lot of people took a hit. But that's how I started writing Nita. And she said, I just want you to write everything you know. You can cover metaphysics, blah, blah, blah. So when I was in Northern California and going to Sonoma State, I met a professional astrologer who I reconnected with about 3 years ago, 40 years later. And when I met him, I was 19, Robert Kimball. He's a world-renowned humanistic astrologer. Humanistic astrology, for those out there, this is not popcorn astrology. It's not about your sun sign or any of those things. This is about individual personalities that are largely complicated and can work any kind of way, given certain circumstances, certain situations, whatever. So anyway, I met Robert, and that's how I got into metaphysics. They thought that I had an unusual gift of perception, somebody being able to perceive and then filter by seeing images, colors, or whatever. Now, granted, people thought I was crazy back in those times. So I was kind of closed in because I didn't know, who I was and what all that was. And these people took me under their wings and they trained me. I mean, put me in a school. Dr. Paul Masters trained me in very broad studies of metaphysical studies and all of that. And they tested me. They test you to see how high your intuitive perception is. These are things that everyone has, but not many people pay attention to. So, they were like, wow, maybe that's how you've been able to get through all these things, is because intuitively you've been kind of mapping your own road out. And that's why you're able to maneuver yourself into these different situations. I'm like, I can see that in chanting, I can see that. And that's how I got into metaphysics. And then the woman that was the publisher at the time, that publishing company, they wanted me to write that section. Then they wanted me to talk about how I went from Waco into the military and that whole journey, and then my journey. And I would and I encourage women out there, women, especially my young sisters, please date people from all over the world, men too, from all walks of life, so that you can have a very broad base about what makes you happy and what your likes and dislikes may be. Some people, are very comfortable when in certain, based situations. Some people have a much broader expansion than that. And there are people of color all over the world that look just like you and me. I went to Japan.
yeah.
I did like somebody, my cousins or somebody. You know, I've been to Japan like 7 times now. They look like my cousin or somebody. I went to Europe. I saw people, just like Malcolm X said, that he went out of the country. Please go outside of the US and travel so that you can get a broader perspective about what life really is. It's not just your community, and it's not, you know, just your little house and your little people you hang with. There is a big old world out here left to explore. And I promise you, at the end of the day, you'll be more Blacker or more whatever you are than you ever were. You won't lose yourself if you know who you are. You trust me. Yeah, it's not gonna go not anywhere. It'll just be more pronounced and more profound with a lot more experience and a lot more flavor and color to it.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, Osiris. What has been your greatest challenge on this journey of yours?
My greatest challenge has been being a woman, being an assertive and aggressive woman in terms of going after what I want. And I would say being a woman that looks a certain kind of way.
Okay.
If you have any kind of personality and that can make people attractive, it's just not always about a face. I will tell people in modeling, it's not about how pretty you are, it's about how pretty they can make you look. That's why they look for very odd faces in modeling, not just, oh, they're pretty. They look for something they can make or shape into anything, you know, by the cheekbones and all of that. I will say it was the hardest thing also, being naive and not having a lot of training at home that taught me about the larger world outside and what to expect in terms of obstacles and the things that would get in the way and adversities. That has worked against me. I'm just not growing up. That's why I sound so young and everything, because I'm like a kid. You know what I mean? I'm just now like growing into my own body, like, oh, you know, because I like just like a baby or somebody just threw yourself out there in the world and went for it, you know? And so that's been my biggest challenge, is my own naivety, my own distrust of myself, my own lack of confidence, and not doing enough research on where I was and where I thought I wanted to be. And again, I'm advising everybody that thinks you just come into Hollywood and be famous overnight. Trust me, it doesn't happen. Try it. Not happening. And all that little YouTube and all this stuff doesn't mean a thing. It means something to certain parts of the artistic creative community. So let me retract that statement. It does mean something. Numbers are very important. In the youth world, in the new world, in the world that is built around an old world, the old world out here, you guys are in the center, kind of doing like this, like a cyclonic, where you're coming up to the top. But this is here already. It's a step. They got old money. Nobody, you know, the old money ain't really struggling and starving and all those. And then the other thing is that no matter with numbers or whatever, when it comes to putting you in a room where you have to actually show talent and skills, cream always rises to the top. It doesn't matter. And you can fake numbers. You can have people go out and say, tell all your friends about me, man. I'm gonna blah, blah, blah. But if you have to go out here and actually do a live show where you have to improvise because the band didn't show up or somebody didn't show up on time because the instrument went out because you don't know what to do, I dare you. You gotta have skills. You have to know what you're doing and you have to research what you're doing.
Yeah,
that's what I advise. And there's no way around it. No shortcuts.
That's what I said. I like what you said. The cream rises to the top.
It always rises to the top.
So what would you say has been your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment has been coming from a small town with a lot of adversity emotionally and spiritually, and growing into an Osiris, into who I am. That's my greatest accomplishment, like starting from there and then developing into the being that I am now, that entity that you see that operates in a body called an Osiris. So
you touched on this a little bit, but what advice would you have for anybody trying to get into the entertainment industry in any type of form?
I would advise them what I just said. Do your homework. Do your research. Don't just coming out here to California. You know how many people came out to LA and they're starving on the streets because somebody said, oh yeah, man, I got an apartment. I'll put you up. Not saying you can't do that, but make sure you have something padded behind you. Make sure that when you come out here, in case the timing's not right and your idea, somebody else caught it and moved it before you did, because they had things set up in another kind of way or whatever. Make sure you have something to fall back on, even if that's something creative. It doesn't have to be a 9-to-5 job, but as long as you're bringing some kind of income in that you don't have to rob, steal, cheat, lie, or do anything that you have to step on somebody's back, hurt or maim another person, put another person down to make yourself feel better. That's what you need. You need more than anything, even more than your dream. You know what you need? You need a strong will to pull that shit off. That's what you need. You need a strong and powerful will to pull it off. Because at some point you'll run out of energy. You run out of trying to ask people to help you. You run out of this and that. And then when you do get where you're going, then you got the demands of your time. You got all these people want something from you. You have to have a strong will. No matter what point in time the kaleidoscope finds you, you're able to function at 150%. That's what you have to have. So,
Ms. Osiris, let the people know what you got going on now, and do you have anything coming up?
I do. Drum roll. Blah, 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 blah. I am happy to announce on live that I just became the fashion trendster, fashionista, columnist and writer for Zoe Magazine. Nice. ZoeMagazine.com. So that's Zio Magazine. Zoe Magazine, just to let you know, is not like any other magazine in the world. It is based on the visions and creativeness of people just like you and I. They are visionaries, they are creative people, they are a group of people that came together and say, look, what can we find to come together to do without causing harm to other people, without putting other people down, that creates peace and harmony, that creates synergy because all different kind of minds. Let's call it Zoe. And so Zoe basically is an art, vision, and creative platform. They do art, vision, and fashion. They focus on artists that, again, that maybe Hollywood ignores. Like we have an interview coming up with Bernie Martin. Bernie Martin designs for Billy Porter. All these kind of people that Hollywood may not even know about, but because we're grassroots and we deal with the real people out here, that's what Zoe Magazine is. So it's ZoeMagazine.com. Now, let me share something with you. We have a Blue Expo going on right now. So if you go to Zoe Magazine, that's Zio, and I love the Z. It's like an electric Z. So I love that sound. If you go to ZoeMagazine.com, you will find my column. It's called It's So Zoe. So I'll be bringing you fashion from all over the world. I can go to any country, talk to anybody, anywhere. And Bernie actually will be coming up sometime in November. So Bernie will actually be in Paris at the time. So we'll be in Paris talking to Bernie. Right. And I mean, Zoom-wise in Paris talking to Bernie, over Zoom, if you walk in the streets, whatever he's gonna do there. And you can submit anything that you've done creatively in the color blue, with the blue hues, hint of blues, anything that has blue. So they're running a Blue Expo. I believe it runs to the end of December. So, but if you go again, ZoeMagazine.com, you will find out more information for those of you who want to know and those of you who want to go Zoe. You can go on Zoe Magazine and find it. And then also, in addition to that, we just redid our whole 15 Minutes to Show channel. So I've got a new cue that I'm very proud of to show, and we're going to be talking about Zoe because that'll be part of our platform. And we are actually going to direct the channel now because of Zoe Magazine. We're going to direct the channel to cover pretty much fashion, trends. Because I'm a former model, I get to talk about, things, places, people, houses, designer, everything you want to talk about. We're going to be doing that on the show. The other thing, I have written a second book, working on my third book, and it's called The Boy Who Stood Between Two Trees.
Like the name.
So I'd like for you to think about that title. I will give you a little bit about it. It is about the trials and tribulations of families and how families can get entangled and all sorts of things, and how many secrets and things can be told and hidden within the frameworks of those lovely walls, especially amongst the rich and famous, whether the rich and famous are in Hollywood or they are the rich and famous in their own local and prospective communities. So that's what that's about. Also, drum roll, I just finished doing an art exhibition at Saatchi Art Craft. Shout out to Saatchi Art, Brianna Kalyani, all of my girls there. I love you. They were really good to me. I'm on their promo. If you go to my YouTube channel, 15 Minutes to Show, you'll see a promo of me doing my thing, dancing. Saatchi Art just finished that. I may be going back to Dallas in January for another exhibition. I also am a member of the Art Inspiration International Women's Group out of New York. My girl, Bibiana Wong Mateus, who is my sister in crime there. We have a women's group that meets and they exhibit in New York. So look for me in New York sometime next year. And finally, I was just nominated for the 2022 Norval Sovereign Award, which is a prize award out of South Africa. They give to people like me, people of color who would never get a chance. And most people in the art world focus on young people. They don't focus on people from a certain age group or whatever, maturity, genders, whatever. And they saw my stuff and it was the shit. And so they loved it. And so I got nominated. So let's just hope that I can get something, or whatever, but just the nomination in itself. If you go on to, it's called Le Amin, you can go onto my website, expressinabstract.net. That's express, EXPRESSIN abstract, the word.net. You will find 2 interviews of me called Le Amin de Buford Delaney. Buford Delaney was a very famous painter in New York that hung out with James Baldwin. They were very good friends. He moved to Paris out of New York because he couldn't get anybody over here to support him. He moved to Paris, died in a mental institute in Paris. And my good friends over there, Monique Wells and Tom Reeves of Entree to Black Paris, which is a portal they use to bring people of color and whoever else interested into Paris and actually give them a live tour and show them the actual city of Paris and places that they would never know existed. They were also responsible really quick for getting our beautiful queen, Josephine Baker, into the Pantheon last year, which is a big deal. No one had ever been able to do that. So I have to shout out to them, tell all about them and what they're doing over there. But that's who the Nerval people are. They told me about the Nerval. I applied and I got submitted, and so I'm one of the nominees. So I am excited, and hopefully I'll have something to say I won or whatever.
Okay.
So that's my stuff I'm doing.
Okay. So my last question I love to ask all my guests. When it is all said and done and you are long gone from this earth, what is it that you want the people to know about Osiris?
I want them to know that Osiris stood for truth. Osiris stood for commonality amongst everyone. And I don't exclude the animals and all of that. I love the animal kingdom as much as I love the human kingdom. And believe that I made an impression. I was able to steer someone in the right direction, say the right words, do the right thing, show the right behavior. That someone would say, wow, I like that person, I like that entity, I like what that behavior is. And I want to do some of that. That's somewhere I want to go in 50, 60 years or wherever it is. And I like to leave mostly that Osiris, regardless of race, color, gender, whatever, that I'm a human being. That's what I want to leave. I'm just no different than you or anybody else. I'm just another person that is expressing myself in a way that I can do, and you can do the same thing. There's no thing. It's just another human being. You make your life, your will, your dreams, what you accomplish, your knowledge. And knowledge is not power. It's the application of knowledge that makes it power.
Right.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of smart people that don't even know how to apply what they know. It is not knowledge that's power. It's the application of what you know and how you can apply it to your daily life. That's what power is. And that's who I want to know as. Like, she was a light, man. She was on fire from the moment she was born till she got up out of here. She was on fire. That's what I want to be.
All right. Well, let the people know where they can find you at one more time.
All right. You can find me, drum roll, on 15 Minutes the Show. Go to my YouTube channel. You know you want to. I've got a blog called Entertainment One. That's ANKH, and then the word entertainment, the word one, ONE.net. And you can also find a lot about me on my website, which is called abstract.net. IG Osiris _Munir _ the painter. Also Osiris. I've got 2 things in IG. On Twitter, Osiris 15 Min, IMNSAN. On Twitter, LinkedIn, Ankh Entertainment, Osiris Munir, and Facebook, Osiris Munir and Ankh Entertainment.
Okay. Well, thank you, Miss
That's
Osiris.
me. Also, I'm on Snapchat. For those of you that like Snapchat, I'm on Snapchat too.
She everywhere. She everywhere for you. But thank you.
Everywhere. I'm all over.
Thank you, Miss Osiris. I love your energy. Just a great
You're
ball of
welcome.
energy. And I know a lot of people love to just be around you and everything. Like I just got that great
that
energy.
Can be a problem. You know, you can attract so many people. You're like, look, wait a minute. And good luck to you and your good luck to you and what you're doing.
I definitely. When I come out there, I'm gonna have to get on the show. You already know.
Come on, yes, we can do it live. When are you gonna be out here?
I think October, November. I'm not sure yet. The end of October or November. So I would definitely keep you posted. Okay. Yeah,
we'll film you while you're out here, and then we'll run it. Okay.
All right. Well, you have a good rest of the day.
Thanks so much.
No problem. And I'll let you know. I will let you know when you drop the article and everything.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.